What's up you guys, it's Emma McGann and welcome to my live streaming home studio walkthrough. In this video, I'm going to give you guys an overview of what I use in my live streaming studio, as well as some recommendations and tips for alternative hardware and software that you can look into yourselves. Then, in these separate episodes, we'll be talking more broadly and in more complex detail on audio, visual, lighting, and room design solutions that you can look to integrate into your own home studio space. So make sure that you check out all of the videos in the series down in the description below. So throughout this series, I'm tiering my recommendations based on affordability, so you guys can find the right thing that fits your setup. Bear in mind though, you want to go into this with the mindset of creating a space that's bespoke for you. Equipment, software, lighting, hardware, everything can become very expensive. So remember, it's important that you can totally work with what you have. I've been live streaming for about 6 years. I organically started out on a platform called YouNow, which I still stream on every single day. I've started live streaming on Twitch in the last year also, and do the occasional Instagram live here and there too. My content is largely music orientated, but I do a lot of gaming as well. I do a lot of casual hangouts with the audience and everything really in between. So I think a lot of what we're going to cover and a lot of what this studio and the equipment I use enables me to do, I think is going to give you guys some really cool hints and tips of what you can do no matter what style of content you're creating for your live streams. So let's get started. Let me show you around. The space that you're currently looking at is just a spare room in my house. I thought it would be cool to rip out this room, start afresh, and try and make everything as efficient and productive as possible. It's actually a multifunctional space in that it's a live streaming studio, it's where I work day to day creating content and music, and it's also the guest room in my house. So whenever anybody comes, guests and friends that stay over, I've always had that novelty of sleeping in the jungle. One of the first steps we took before building anything in the studio was to get the camera positioning correct. Okay, so what we've done is we've set up the rig at the very back to get an idea how much depth we have into the room this way. So that is ideally going to be our new backdrop, that corner right there. So after tearing everything down on day one, we set up the camera on the slider in the desired corner of the room, set up a monitor so we could see what the lens sees, and marked off exactly where the cameras would live. Whatever space you're working with, working lengthways in terms of your camera setup is always going to benefit you the most. This gives me just a little bit more room to work with, especially with the camera that I use that has a very small sensor. Perhaps you're looking into different camera solutions or even the webcam route for your live streams. With webcams, you can be limited by the bus speed of USB. You never quite get the quality that you would with a DSLR camera as the data transfer isn't fast enough. Sometimes the software that comes with a lot of webcams can be temperamental and is pretty limited in terms of settings. But webcams are portable, they're easy to use, and it's super simple to add multiple webcams at little cost if you're looking for a multi-camera setup, as long as your PC has the bus speed. I don't currently use any webcams in my setup, but I do use cameras from the Blackmagic Cinema range. In the past, I've live streamed with a multi-camera setup, but never with two cameras of the exact same quality. To keep that quality consistent with my live stream, I'm now using two Blackmagic Cinema cameras, the 2.5K version, this one right here, which is my static cam, and this one right here, which is my roaming cam. As a live streamer who predominantly creates live music content, having this dual camera setup has been super handy just to offer the audience a more dynamic performance. They get to see more of the room, and for me, the performer, it kind of gives me a bit more scope in terms of movement as well in the room itself. And also just addressing the audience one-on-one with a static cam feels more personable. I'd actually recommend you check out the Blackmagic Cinema Pocket Camera, which is a newer model and a great alternative to the dinosaur camera models that I use from Blackmagic. Here's a few more range options in the DSLR and webcam space. I'm trying to think in terms of accessibility and affordability here. One thing that you should look out for when you're picking out a camera for your live streams. Ideally, you want a camera that offers a clean HDMI feed. A HDMI feed out of your camera that isn't clean will typically show the overlay settings that you're used to seeing on your camera's screen. Kind of like this. Not something that you want for your live streams. A lot of cameras offer a HDMI out, but not all of those feeds are clean. So look into it before you buy. I've put a list of cameras that do offer a clean HDMI feed out in the description below. When it comes to capture cards, Elgato have some really great options. For me, I use the Blackmagic Decklink mini recorder. For my broadcasting software, I use OBS. I jump into how I have my OBS scenes and profiles set up in our visual episode, so be sure to check that out. The slider I'm using is the GVM motorized slider. You can pick it up on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description below. To give you an idea, the slider is currently on 57% speed, which you can see you've got a lot of scope there to kind of ramp things up if you really wanted that really fast movement look. For live streams and what I do, that's probably not what I want. I don't want to make my audience too dizzy, so bear that in mind if you are thinking about integrating a slider into your setup. Small, subtle movements make a huge difference. Don't go too over the top. But going in, it's worth noting that you don't have to set these things on max to have a great effect. For monitors, I'd recommend a multi-monitor setup. On my live streaming station in front of me, I have OBS running on a landscape monitor. And then to my right, I have a portrait monitor, a monitor twisted on its side to display my comments midstream. Spinning your monitor portrait mode just offers more surface area for that comment section to live on. And as the streamer in the moment, visually, it's just easier to see everything when that screen is on portrait mode for your comments. That's what I'd recommend. My third monitor is hooked up to my second PC, and that's responsible for running all of the audio for my streams via Ableton Live. It's also responsible for the lighting software, which runs every single LED light up in the studio via DMX. I talk more about the Q Light Controller software and its benefits in our lighting episode, so make sure you check that out. Let's talk Stream Deck. Previously in my old setup, I was actually using a mini Korg MIDI controller. It was a little bit janky and didn't work so well. Some of the faders were falling off, so it was definitely in need of an upgrade. You can essentially just use your keyboard to set up different commands for changing scenes inside of OBS or whatever you want to change, but it's very limited. If you're a streamer already, it may be obvious that in terms of an interface that you can interact with midstream to control different elements, the Stream Deck is the way to go. Here's a look at my Stream Deck to give you an idea of what I use it for. So I have assigned folders for YouNow, Twitch, YouTube. This is actually a filter inside of Ableton via a plugin by Isotope to actually filter out the noise of my air conditioner and also the computer noise in the room. If I turn that off, you can hear that, right? And the vocal changes a little bit. With that filter on though, that room noise is completely gone and my vocal is nice and isolated. I also have a dedicated folder for the DMX LED lights inside of the studio. So inside of the lights folder, I can control different colored scenes that are preset templates that I've created in the lighting software. Again, we'll talk through the lighting software that I use in the separate video. I also have a handy edit templated mode for Photoshop, Premiere Pro, and After Effects for when I'm video editing. This allows me to have easy access to different shortcuts in my left hand, very quick shortcuts that just make the whole efficiency of getting a video cut and edited and done a lot faster. Stream Deck is also compatible with Philips Hue. I have a Philips Hue light set up in the corner when I don't necessarily want all of the LEDs on in the studio and I want that kind of homely vibe. I also have an on-off switch on my Stream Deck to control that lamp on and off when I'm not streaming and maybe I'm sat just chill, editing, or maybe just doing a little bit of rehearsing. Let me talk you through quick the different scenes I have assigned inside of YouNow. I'll talk you through very quickly some examples, a typical way that you could set up your own Stream Deck at home for your streams. So let's hop into the YouNow folder. First up, we have the Go Live function, which essentially does what it says. Click that button and you live. The next one triggers my intro sequence before I stream. This is usually a video between 2 or 6 minutes long that I play at the start of every stream, just to give the audience time to settle into place and for them to actually make it into the broadcast. Then I have control here over my static cam and the wide cam. My Be Right Back screen. We also have a gaming trigger button, which essentially transitions to our gaming template inside of OBS. I also have Air Server set up. So whatever I display on my phone gets shown on the screen as I scroll. So if I want to give a quick shout out to somebody on Instagram, or I want to show something that's actually on my phone, then I can do that with Air Server. I also have a promo trigger here, which essentially plays anything that I have that I want to push out into the world if I'm promoting a new YouTube video or even a new single. Having a mini promo trigger like this, as long as you don't abuse it, is a great way, a great call to action to remind your audience what you got going on, what you've been creating, and what you want to push them towards. I also have a perform scene on the Stream Deck inside this folder. This essentially triggers an automated movement between the two camera angles, so I don't have to manually sit and press when I want to change the cameras. So when I'm performing and sat and performing guitar, OBS will change for me when I'm in this mode. This command turns my reverb on and off, and the last button opens up a tuner in Ableton on my second PC. All of these functions are something that I'd usually have to click and drag my mouse across multiple monitors to open what I wanted. Instead, the Stream Deck allows everything to be accessible to me at my fingertips, whatever I want to change, whatever I want to control. The Stream Deck also comes in different sizes as well, so if you found that you needed way more scenes and way more commands and elements to your streams, then you can go one up or even one smaller. So ultimately, for streaming, for recording content on YouTube, for controlling different elements in Ableton, for the lights in the room, and even for my editing, the Stream Deck has been an absolute game changer. I'm going to talk more in depth about the cameras that I use, the color grading software, graphics cards, everything in between for visuals on another video in this series. We'll cover everything. So if you're wondering what cameras I'm using, what software I'm using for color grading, all of that kind of stuff, check out the visual episode in this series. Let's look over the audio side of the studio. I want to talk you guys through my audio setup, but first I wanted to talk through 3 typical audio setups that are commonly used that might benefit you and your live streams. And we're going to start simple with a USB microphone setup. You may have played around with the inbuilt microphone on your webcam, and sure, that definitely works. Your audience will be able to hear you, I guess. But generally, I'd advise against using the inbuilt microphone that might already be in your existing webcam, if you can. So really for live streaming, the next step up would be a USB microphone. So let's talk through some options. And there's a lot. I mean, here's just a few examples. There's links to all of these ranges in the description below. They're a great route if you want to keep your setup minimal, hassle-free, and if you don't want to spend too much money. This is a great option, especially if your setup is portable. If you're creating content that requires you to maybe use a laptop, or maybe you're not working in a dedicated live streaming space, it's likely that you've probably looked into USB microphones if you're a podcaster or if you're a musician. But just a heads up, especially if you're podcasting and you're in a scenario where you're wanting to record more than one person or source in the room, you're going to need a USB mic that has a bi-directional pattern. What this will enable you to do with just one mic alone is to pick up not just you, the source who sits in front of the mic, but whoever sat behind the mic as well. So for example, in a scenario where you're podcasting, perhaps your guest is on the other side of the table. If your mic has a bi-directional pattern, then it will not only pick up you, the host, but also your guest as well. I'd recommend the Blue Yeti from this tier for this scenario. So at least with USB microphones, you're kind of offering your audience a slightly better audio experience. Try and think long-term how this option might aid you and your content in the future. If you're looking at streaming longer term with a higher audio quality, perhaps you're a musician, perhaps you're looking for that multi-functionality where you can take whatever mic you use for your live streaming into the studio as well, then USB mics are not for you in this scenario. You're going to want to look at the other audio setups we're about to delve into next. But if you're a casual podcaster, or you're a musician who's just starting out recording demos from home, or maybe you host casual chat focused content for your live streams, then a USB mic is a great solution. You can always look at upgrading in the future if you want to. As a side note, you guys should definitely check out the iRig Stream. This is such a great solution for when you're broadcasting on an app that has no PC option, but you still want high quality audio. If you're tired of singing or playing through a tinny mic on your phone, this is the perfect solution for you. The iRig Stream will allow you to connect an external audio interface and input that audio into your phone as you're filming. So while you'll be using your phone's camera, you won't be using your phone's mic. Perfect for improving your audio for visuals for social, as well as live streaming on Instagram, Facebook, and if you're broadcasting on the go on your phone. Chances are, if you're a musician and you perform regularly, you may already have a mixing desk lying around that you could use for your live streams. But for those who don't know their way around a mixing desk, let's talk through the benefits of integrating one into your live streaming audio setup. What a mixing desk will essentially give you is more control, more flexibility, and more inputs. Put simply, it gives you the ability to independently mix the levels of your microphone. Perhaps you've got a guitar or a piano, whatever signal you're feeding through the desk. This is obviously something that you can't do with just a USB microphone and no audio interface. Depending on the amount of inputs you need, there's a ton of options out there, both USB and analog. This USB mixer range is a great option to look into if you're interested. I wanted to briefly mention the TC Helicon Go XLR as a solution here too. This is an all-in-one USB audio interface with a mini mixer, sampler, and voice effects. One mic input, one line input, so perfect if you're just looking to mix a vocal and some music. I would say this is definitely ideal if you're doing podcasting or gaming. Take note though, at the time of making this video, it's currently not compatible with Mac, only Windows, so that's something to bear in mind. It's definitely worth researching into to see if this is an option that could benefit your existing setup. The mixing desk route is a great choice, particularly if you're a musician. But overall, a mixing desk can offer more scope for all kinds of styles of live stream content, whatever you do, whether you game, whether you chat, whatever. Most desks come with inbuilt EQ and effects, so if you want to dial in, say, a little reverb or delay, or whatever you like on whichever channel you choose, it will give you the ability to do that. It will also give you more control over the headphone monitoring, so you can hear yourself and any of the signals that you're feeding through the desk. It will, of course, also give you the capability of upgrading to a better microphone. So let's look at some options. Here's some mics I'd recommend. First of all, the Neumann TLM 103. This is the microphone that I use here in the studio, demos at home, vocals in the studio. I use this for everything. I dig in even deeper into this microphone in our audio episode, so check that out. Secondly, the Aston Origin, great option for affordability and clarity. And thirdly, the newer condenser microphone, the NW800. I'll also talk more in our audio episode about why typically condenser microphones are a better option in most scenarios over dynamic mics for your live streams. That and more in our audio episode, so make sure you check it out. Link in the description below. Firstly, a DAW is a digital audio workstation. This is software that enables you to edit, produce, and mix digital audio. Unless you're already used to using a specific DAW, I would recommend Ableton Live over any other software for live streaming. I use Ableton Live in my setup. I also use it for recording demos at home. I use it on stage for my shows. All DAWs or DAWs come with a learning curve, especially if you're a beginner, but Ableton, I think, in my opinion, is probably the easiest one to get your head around if you're just getting started in this realm. So in order to digitally mix your audio sends inside of your DAW, you're first going to need to input your sound in some way into the software that is on your PC. And for this, you're going to need an external USB sound card. So here's what I use along with some other recommendations. I deep dive into even more detail when it comes to my audio setup, pros and cons of different sound cards, software, and everything in between over on our audio episode in this series. So make sure you check that out so you can get your head around what audio setup is best for you. Let's talk about monitoring. It's likely that you don't want to sit in your stream with massive cans on, especially if you're a musician, if you're looking down, playing the piano or playing guitar. It could be a lot more comfortable to actually wear in-ear headphones to monitor yourself while you're streaming. Now, this is a little bit different if you're streaming games and games alone. The gaming market has obviously lots of affordable and comfortable options when it comes to headphones. But if you're streaming music, if you're performing as a musician on your live streams, you want to make sure that you're comfortable and that you can hear everything that your audience can. For musicians who are live streaming, I wouldn't recommend necessarily sitting there with cans on unless that's something you prefer. Instead, smaller, comfortable, and more subtle in-ear monitors might be a great choice. Now, in-ear monitors can get expensive. Depending on your budget though, there's some great options out there. Here's 3 tiers of in-ear monitors that you can check out, ranging from very affordable to maybe a little pricier. I'm actually using the ZSTs, which is the lowest tier that I've provided for you guys here. You can pick these up on Amazon. I'll leave a link down in the description below. They're so affordable, and for the price, the clarity that you get is pretty damn good. For years, I have used these, not just in my live streams, but also when I'm on stage performing as well. I've just picked up some fresh ones. They have them in blue and reds as well. So I'm gonna take these out so you guys can have a little look-see. One thing I will say about the wires that come with these headphones is that they are very flexible in that they fit around your ear very comfortably and have the flexibility enough to mold to whatever shape ear you have. You know, if you've got those big owl ears, These are fine, they'll fit you too. The reason I've found that I've had to replace them in the past is mainly just wear and tear. After time, I've found that the flexibility in the wire at the back where you can mold it behind your ear has maybe lost a bit of its rigidness. That is quite literally the only reason I ever replace them. If you're new to in-ears like these, it can take some time to get used to them, especially if you're more used to sitting with big headphones on. These do a semi-decent job of blocking out any exterior sound. For better results there and a more isolated sound, you really want to look at the higher tiers there that I've provided. Let's test these out. Always make sure you run your in-ears behind your head as well. 1, 2. You want to feed the wire over your ear and then run it back. Nice and easy. I would say the rigidity of this wire that have come with this set, I don't know, a little softer than I was expecting. One thing I would recommend, if you can afford it, is custom IEMs. This requires you to have the shape of your ear molded. Those molds are then sent off to whatever company you're buying your headphones from. This provides a snug fit, and usually custom molds do a way better job of isolating the sound. And typically, because you're paying more, you'll get a way better sound than you would with these as well. I stored a lot of the absorption foam that I didn't use when we first built the studio, actually just in a cupboard next door. So I pulled that out and actually padded out the room a lot more facing this way. Seeing as this is the corner that I'm going to be talking at and singing into the most. Just a reminder though that absorption foam is not by any means soundproofing. This style of foam will absorb sound and it will not in any way trap any sub or bass frequencies. It helps to reduce the echo in the room. So don't be putting up any egg boxes or absorption foam on your walls at home thinking that the neighbors won't hear you. They'll still hear you. One solution that has worked for me in terms of soundproofing from home efficiently has been building a room within a room or a wall behind a wall. That's essentially what I have on this wall right here. Back when we first built this space, we were conscious of our neighbors. We didn't want to irritate them, and especially with me being a musician and just being a loud person in general, needed to put something, a little buffer in place. Behind this wall is the actual wall. It's been built with a series of wood panels, frames, and inside that, jam-packed to the brim, is something called rock wall. It's a great solution for at home. It can get a little pricey though, but it's well worth the investment if it saves you a few arguments with neighbors. Highly recommend it, and then obviously place any absorption foam to reduce the sound of the echo in the room that you're recording in. When it comes to isolating the computer fan noise in your room, there's some different approaches and solutions you can look at. You can look at having your PC in another room completely, which a lot of people do. It's an easy way to combat it if you have the right length of cable. But yeah, that can just be a little bit of a mess in terms of the cables, and perhaps you don't have the space to do something like that. Inside the housing for my PC, what we've done is installed sticky back adhesive insulation, which is usually found in the insides of car doors usually. This really helps to isolate the sound of the PC fan, which can get really noisy at times, especially if your computer is doing a lot of processing. They're very thin sheets, but they do such a great job in terms of isolating that fan noise just a little bit more. Obviously, you don't want to plaster the housing of your PC with this stuff. You don't want your PC to overheat, but adding a few in there, if you can find some room, really helps to dampen that noise. It also helps in that situation to have a PC that is actually water cooled, so you don't have to worry too much if you are insulating on the inside so as not to overheat it. Wherever you set your PC up in your room, you got to make sure that there's plenty of space for the air to circulate. You don't want your PC overheating, especially midstream, especially mid-edit or whatever you got going on. And ideally, you want to have it as far away from your microphone as possible. In this new setup, I actually have double the trouble when it comes to fan noises. I now have a PC that processes all of the audio for the streams and a second one that does all the visual. Splitting the processing power like this has been so efficient. I don't know why I haven't done it before, but it has meant additional fan noise in the room. We're actually using a plugin from Isotope to cancel out the fan noise in the room. I'll go into more depth in that in the audio part of this video series. I'll leave a link in the description below. The positioning of your light should really be one of the very first things that you think about before you start setting up your live streaming home studio. Ideally, depending on the space that you're using, if you can, try and use a 3-point lighting system. This method consists of 3 light sources: your key light, a fill light, and a backlight or hair light. For this setup, I would highly recommend using controllable LED panels so you can incrementally dial in the brightness up or down wherever it's needed. It just gives you way more control. I use a combination of LEDs and Philips fluorescents in this room, most of which are mounted on the walls or the ceiling. The key light is the source of light that's needed to light your subject, i.e. you. The fill light is cast across the subject at an angle, which gets rid of any obvious glaring shadows created by the key light. And the backlight illuminates the space behind the subject to make the subject really stand out from the background. The 3-point lighting system is what I use in this studio, so my key light and my fill light are actually mounted on the walls in front of me, either side of the camera. And then my backlight is actually mounted onto this ceiling. I have 2 backlights. Without a solid, well-planned lighting setup, your image quality will definitely suffer on your live streams, even if you have a fantastic camera. Lighting really is the cherry on top. It's going to take your visual quality to the next level. So make sure you look into it, do some research, and try out a 3-point lighting system if your space allows for it. When it comes to colored LEDs to customize your space, there's a lot of options. Here's just a few. I have a combination of different LED lights that I use in this studio. I have some parkans on the floor that flood light upwards. I have our neon tubes. I also have some big LED strips that are mounted onto the ceiling to really flood the top end of the jungle, so there's more coverage on the panels. The LED lighting that we've installed above the back of the jungle are actually just really old LED bars that we used to use in a band I was in. They've been used on stage over the years. They've definitely got some wear and tear, but they do a great job of throwing some light down on those leaves to just accent the edges and really make them pop on camera. Same with these neon tubes. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. This archway looks so cool with the moving camera rig that we've set up. It really adds some depth to the room. These neon tubes were also used for when I've been in bands in the past and we've used them on the stage. They were sitting collecting dust, so decided to work them into this space. Every single LED light in my room is DMX'd or linked in a series, and this enables me to program each unit independently, which means I can create and program whatever light scenes I want. I'm going to deep dive into how we set up our DMX series with the LEDs. I'm also going to talk about the lighting software that we use called the Q Light Controller. All of this and more in our lighting episode, so make sure you check that out. I'll also talk more on how we set up the MIDI commands on the Stream Deck to trigger whatever lighting scenes happened. A lot of the computing elements to my setup, so my PC spec, my graphics cards, everything in between, we're going to dig into in the visual episode of this series. So don't miss out on that. There's a link in the description below. Something that I think is important when it comes to live streams is that first impression. And to be honest, creating an environment that looks great behind you on camera is just so much fun creatively as well. The jungle you see behind me has been patched together with these. The problem I had initially putting these things up was that it was giving me more of a kind of garden vibe more than jungle. So I found some artificial tropical leaves that I could add to these panels to really exaggerate the jungle look. In terms of foreground decoration, I've actually hung some vines from the front to give the kind of element of depth when you are looking through not this camera, but our other camera that roams on our rig. I feel like adding things to the foreground this way makes the space appear a little bit bigger and also just kind of more immersive for the viewer. I knew that I needed to keep this as a multifunctional space. Live streaming, music production, and guests when they can stay over. One of the main problems with my older setup was the size of the desk that I was using. The necessary equipment that I needed for the live streams really wasn't taking up that much space on the desk, and it very quickly collected a lot of clutter. Oh my god. This is an old desk from IKEA that I picked up maybe 3 years ago. Over the years, all of my books have made their way into the studio. Just everything I own has made its way onto my desk. Creative mess, that's my excuse. So we broke down that desk, got it out of here, and immediately so much space opened up in the room. If you are working with a small space, it's worth thinking about getting a shallow desk, depending on how much equipment that you usually run in your office, your studio, or wherever you're working. Not to mention smaller desks just will not allow for clutter. If you have that problem like me, creative mess everywhere all the time. I've always loved the idea of a standing desk. I've actually never had one up until this point, and although it is very, very homemade, it works so beautifully. From a design point of view, initially the desk stations were going to be in this shape, almost mirroring the neon lights that you see behind me, our archway right here. But the problem with that was space in the room. It would have meant taking up way too much space with that V shape, which kind of counteracted the whole point of changing up the studio in the first place. So ultimately, I landed on the idea of pushing the desks back a bit, as far back as they possibly could, where it was still comfortable for me as a streamer to kind of reach forward, interact with the stream deck, be able to change any settings that I need to inside of OBS or whatever I'm using. And actually, this is a way better kind of setup than having that V shape where, you know, actually all of the equipment monitor-wise, mic boom-wise would have been in view. I've tried to hide the mic itself, which is right here, out of view completely, just so that there's more of the room, there's more of the streamer, me, and you can see everything that you need to see, but you can still hear me perfectly well. In all honesty, you don't need to go all extra with a backdrop like this for your streams, but if you want to get creative and have some fun with it and really create a bespoke look for you, then go for it. Design something that's unique to you and your viewers and something that your audience will love. I think having an eye-catching backdrop is something that can really bring new viewers in, especially if they're just looking at the thumbnail, kind of similar to if they're looking at a YouTube video that they're about to click on. Whatever you decide your backdrop to be, make it unique to you and just have fun with it. I wanted to throw in my PC specs for both my visual PC and audio PC so you guys can get an idea of everything that I use. Hopefully this gives you a good idea. I've left some links to what I use down in the description below too. If you guys have any questions about anything in this video, leave them in the comments below. I would love to see your stream setups. You can join my Discord server. I've left a link down below. There's a channel over there if you want to talk anything to do with live stream studio setup. There's a place to do it over on the Discord server, so join up over there. If it's been helpful, hit that like button, make sure you subscribe to me here. And if you want to check out anything to do with me and my music, you can head on over to emmamcgann.com. If you want to support me, my music, and my live streams, you can do so over on YouNow, on Twitch, just by streaming my music in general. Remember, you can support me on Patreon. One of my tiers over there offers you guys one-on-one hangouts where we can sit and chat about your live stream setup. And hopefully I can help you iron out any problems you might be having and also answer any live streaming questions you might have. Thanks for watching. I genuinely hope this has been helpful to you guys in some way if you're a beginner streamer looking to get started, or even if you're streaming currently and you're looking to upgrade. I hope it's given you a worthwhile insight into what I use anyway, and hopefully you've taken something from it that you might even incorporate into your own streams. Thanks for watching, you guys, and happy streaming.